New York's mayoral race has turned into a national brawl in the United States. And at the center of it all is Zohran Mamdani, the 34-year-old state legislator from Queens who could soon become the city's first Muslim mayor. As early voting surges across the 5 boroughs, Mamdani, a self-described democratic socialist, is provoking outrage as well as admiration. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo laughed along with the conservative radio host who said that Mamdani would celebrate another 9/11-style terrorist attack on New York City. Within hours, that exchange ricocheted across the campaign trail. Mamdani and a cross-section of Democrats denounced the conversation as Islamophobic. Mamdani stood outside a Bronx mosque and delivered an emotional address, speaking about the indignities faced by Muslim New Yorkers. He recounted how his own aunt stopped taking the subway after 9/11 because she feared wearing her hijab.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt, who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
His voice cracked as he spoke about how Muslim identity was often treated as a liability in public life.
6 years ago, shortly after I had announced I was running for assembly, a well-meaning Muslim uncle pulled me aside. He smiled softly and looked at me with care. In a quiet voice, he told me I did not have to tell people I was Muslim. His eyes kind, his beard proud, and his face heavy with the implication of the unsaid. I had not learned the lesson that he had been taught, time and again. It is the lesson that safety could only be found in the shadows of our city.
Vice President J.D. Vance ridiculed him online. According to Mamdani, the real victim of 9/11 was his aunt who got some bad looks. Mamdani's supporters saw it as proof of the Islamophobia he's been talking about. His opponents doubled down. Republican Curtis Levo called him a supporter of global jihad. Even outgoing Mayor Eric Adams chimed in. New York can't be Europe, he said, warning against Islamic extremism. Mamdani's response was measured but firm. He said he would no longer hide his faith or identity.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt, who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab. I want to speak to the Muslim city worker, whether they teach in our schools or walk the beat for the NYPD, New Yorkers who all make daily sacrifices on behalf of this city only to see their leaders spit in their face. I want to speak to every child who grows up in New York marked as the other, who is randomly selected in a way that rarely feels random, who feels that they carry a stain that can never quite be cleaned. Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion. I will always remember the disdain I faced, the way my name could immediately become Muhammad, and how I could return to my city only to be asked in a double-mirrored room at the airport if I had any plan of attacking it. And since I was very young, I have known that I was spared the worst of it. I was never pressured to be an informant like a classmate of mine. I have never had the word terrorist spray painted on my garage as one of my staff had to endure. I will be a Muslim man in New York City each of those 11 days, and every day that follows after that. I will not change who I am. I will not change how I eat. I will not change the faith that I am proud to belong to. But there is one thing I will change. I will no longer look for myself in the shadows. I will find myself in the light.
He framed the attacks not as personal insults, but as part of a bigger problem, that New York's Muslim community, nearly 1 million strong, had lived too long under suspicion. It was a turning point. What began as a campaign for affordable housing and free buses had suddenly become a fight over belonging, identity, and what it means to be American in the post-9/11 era. In the days that followed, Mamdani's rallies began to look more like rock concerts than political events. Thousands packed Forest Hill Stadium in Queens to hear him speak, alongside Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Sanders called him Trump's worst nightmare. AOC declared his campaign the first battle in taking the country back from corruption and bigotry. New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who doesn't even share Mamdani's leftist ideology, endorsed him, praising his grace, courage and grit. Elon Musk, of all people, reposted the endorsement, calling Mamdani the future of the Democratic Party. For the American left, Mamdani's campaign has become a stress test. Can democratic socialism actually govern the financial capital of the world?
Ordinary people, working class people, black and white and Latino, Asian, gay and straight, coming together to take on the oligarchy. That is Trump's worst nightmare. Brothers and sisters, with your help over the next 8 days, this young man is going to make American history. It is my honor to introduce the next mayor of the city of New York, Zohran Mamdani.
That is why the election of Zohran is as important as our cause today. Childcare, buses, rent, and our rights. Here in New York City, it is the jewel and the center of all that is possible in America. And on November 4th, we will prove that today. We will prove it to the world and we will prove it to the nation. And we will send a loud message to President Donald Trump that his authoritarianism is no good here. Made possible by this great city and by our... This is America, New York City. Don't let them tell you any different. Don't let them tell you that we are the exception. We are the rule. We are the standard. We are the acceptance. And we set the bar for America. I'm talking to you, Donald Trump.
Behind the drama, Mamdani's appeal rests on a simple promise that New York should be livable again. He's running on freezing rents for 2 million tenants, making buses free, offering universal childcare, and creating city-owned grocery stores to fight soaring food prices. The average rent in New York is over $4,000 a month. Grocery prices have jumped nearly 9% in a year. Mamdani's pitch that whatever you need to live in the city, you shouldn't be priced out of it, has struck a nerve. Polls show him leading Cuomo and Slivo by double digits, with his biggest support among younger working-class voters. But New York's elite are not happy. Hedge fund tycoons like Bill Ackman and Dan Loeb have warned that Mamdani's plans would destroy the city's economy. Real estate magnate John Katsimatidis predicted property prices would crash by half under a Mamdani administration. Their hostility seems to have only helped him. In one viral clip, Mamdani stood outside an $87 million penthouse on Billionaires Row and said this apartment costs more than 200 homes in Queens. That's the problem I'm running to fix. Trump has called him a little communist.
The problem, we have a communist who's 33 years old, doesn't know a damn thing. Practically, he's never worked a day in his life. And he sort of caught on, right? And I'm not going to send a lot of money to New York. I don't have to. You know, the money comes all through the White House. And if they're going to be sending us stupid policies, I mean, communist policies, which is proven for thousands of years doesn't work. You know, we don't have to prove it again. We're not going to ruin one of our great cities because we'll make that great. We will clean up the crime in about 30 days. It took 12 days to do Washington, D.C.
Two Republican congressmen, Randy Fine of Florida and Andy Ogles of Tennessee, have urged the Justice Department to investigate Mamdani's U.S. citizenship, calling for his potential deportation. Randy Fine even demanded a review of every naturalization of the last 30 years, starting with Mamdani. Mamdani called the remarks racist.
Sacrifices for the city they call home, only to see their leaders spit in their face. I want to speak to every child who grows up here, marked as the other, who is randomly selected in a way that never quite feels random.
Despite the vitriol, Mamdani has spent the months before the election meeting with business leaders, Jewish groups and unions. His rise is the product of 2 decades of organizing by Muslim New Yorkers who turned post-9/11 fear into a political ammunition. Their voter turnout in this year's Democratic primary jumped 60%. While Trump keeps calling Mamdani a communist, Republicans are threatening investigations. But on the streets of Queens and Brooklyn, Mamdani's movement feels like something else, an experiment in hope.